All right, today we're going to quickly show you how to measure your paper for the Foursquare drawing project. Today the Google Meets didn't work, so this is what's going to happen at the end. Your 12 by 12 inch piece of paper is going to look like this at the end, but let me show you how to get there. Just for the sake of ease, I'm going to use a small piece of paper just so that way you can easily see me measure. But what you're going to do is first, you're going to measure the bottom of your paper. And that's going to be close to a 12 by 12 inch square, but it's not going to be perfect. I would use millimeters, which are this end. This would be a lot easier to use. You can use inches if you only have inches, but try to use millimeters. But remember that your zero is always going to be at the end of the ruler, like it's going to be this black mark right here. If you're doing millimeters, you've got to count kind of backwards. Like here's the 1 centimeter mark, so you got to count back. There's 10 millimeters in a centimeter. So you need to go to, this is 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5. 5 is halfway there. 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. This is the zero on your ruler. If you're using inches, if you don't have millimeters and you only have inches, there are 16 spaces in here. So you would count back. This would be 16, 15, 14, etc., all the way back down to 1 and 0. So this is your black mark. So you're going to put this black mark at the bottom corner of your paper. Now, before you even measure this, sometimes these papers aren't cut exactly perfect, okay? They're cut on a cutting board. So what might happen is, I'm going to exaggerate, but like, you see this piece of paper? This is a lot longer than this is. Well, here's the thing. These papers I cut, they may be close to a square, but they may not be exactly a square. Like this may be a little shorter than this side. So we can't just measure half, and connect the dot and hope it's going to work out. So what we're going to do is first is we want to make sure that we have the halfway point here. And I would recommend trying to make sure that you have a good 90-degree angle on your paper. What does that mean? We'll take an extra piece of paper and take that extra piece of paper and put it in the corner, like a piece of notebook paper or something, and put it in the corner of the 12 by 12 paper I gave you, and just see if this is even and this is even. If so, it's a really good 90-degree angle. If it doesn't work at that corner, then turn it, try each corner till you get a really good 90-degree angle, okay? So after you know you got a good 90-degree angle, you're going to measure this. I would use millimeters, and you're going to put your zero right here at this corner, and you're going to see exactly where the paper ends. Now, I will tell you that I'm using a really small piece of paper. On this large piece of paper, when I measured it, I had a couple of different measurements, okay? I'll try to quickly go over with you what those were. Like, one of the measurements that I got when I used centimeters. Now, centimeters are these long, from here to here, that's a centimeter. From here to here is another centimeter, so that's 2, that's 3, that's 4. So they're centimeters. These little guys are called millimeters. Think of the centimeter as a dime and the millimeter as a penny, because it takes 10 pennies to make a dime. It takes 10 millimeters to make a centimeter. So when I measured the bottom of this large piece of paper here, this 12 by 12 inch piece of paper, what I got was, I got 306 millimeters, okay, which was the same as 30.6 centimeters. This is the same thing. This is just pennies, this is just dimes. It's just two ways of looking at it. From my ruler, 305 was right here. This is 30, by the way, 30 centimeters or 300 millimeters, then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 millimeters past that point. So I had just a little bit beyond, so I knew it was going to be about 306 millimeters, or if I was looking at centimeters, 30.1, 0.2, 0.3, 0.4, 0.5, and then 6 centimeters. So what I want to do is, I want to find the halfway point on my 12 by 12 inch piece of paper. So I divide that in half, and if I do simple division, you can use a calculator to do this, okay, to save time. All right, I had 153 millimeters, which is the same in centimeters. It's the same thing. It's the same number. The only difference is that you have this decimal point. It's 15.3 centimeters. So the halfway point on my paper was 15.3 centimeters. That is the same thing as 153 millimeters. Now, you may have gotten something different. Instead of 306, you may have gotten 305, or you may have gotten 304. But whatever your middle is, find where that middle number is. And if this is your large 12 by 12 inch piece of paper, you're going to put a mark at the halfway point. Okay, so you put a mark at the halfway point. Let's pretend like that is half. Now, Mr. Norris, what if I only have inches on mine? Well, it's 16ths. That's a real pain, okay? So you may get a perfect 12, but if you don't get a perfect 12, maybe you get 11 and 15 sixteenths, or 11 and 14 sixteenths, or 11 and 13 sixteenths, or maybe you got 12 and a 16th, okay? you just take your rule. You know 6 is half of 12. So if it's a little bigger than 12, go up a little bit. If it's less, then go back. But you're going to have to look up the math on that, okay? If it was 11 and 14/16, okay, then half of 12, well, basically it would be 1/16 shy of 6. How do I figure that out? Man, it's a lot of complicated math. I really don't want to do it, but I'm going to do it. So if I had 11 and 14/16 and I wanted to divide that in half, well, half of 11 is going to be 5 1/2. And if we change the half into sixteenths, it's going to be 5 8/16, because we know if we take 8/16 and divide it down, it's going to be 5 1/2, okay? So that's 5 8/16. Well, we still have the 14/16 over here. Well, half of 14 is 7. So that's 7/16. So it's going to be 5 15/16, because 8 plus 7 is 15. So 5 15/16. Here is 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15/16. One away from 6, just like I told you before. All right, so that's the math. Basically, you're measuring this and find the halfway point. Now, do not find the midpoint up here. If you find the midpoint up here, what if your paper is longer here and shorter here? Then what's going to happen is when you connect the lines, it's going to be a crooked line. So what you're going to do is you're going to take your ruler. You're going to butt it up at the bottom of your page, just like you did when we did linear perspective. You're going to butt it up at the bottom. You're going to make this a really, really light line, a really, really light line. And if you want to, you can do this. Mr. Norris, what if I don't have a ruler? Well, if you don't have a ruler, what you would do is you would take your 2 fingers, come in where you think half is, make a mark, and then take a scrap piece of paper, and then say, okay, where did I think half was? I think it was here. Well, then take this piece of paper and see if it's the same. If it is, then you're good. Well, on my piece of paper, it's not. I'm off, okay? So then if that's the case, you go back and you change this dot before you make this line. Now, once you've made the halfway point, you measured it, you find the halfway point, you put your ruler on here, you butted it up, and you made your line straight up like this. Well, what you're going to do is now is you're going to turn the paper either this way, or you're going to turn the paper this way. What you want to do again is you want to find a really good 90-degree angle. So take a scrap piece of paper that you know has a good 90-degree angle, and put it in this corner and see if the paper lines up with it on both the bottom and the left-hand side. If so, then this is a great 90-degree angle. If it doesn't, and I have a feeling this one might not, actually, yeah, this one's off by a little bit. This little piece of paper barely sticks out. So I don't want to use that side. I want to use this side. You're going to do the same thing again. You're going to find your middle point. Okay, you're going to measure it. Now, here's the thing. This won't be probably quite exactly as long as this is. So measure it again. Maybe this time instead of 306 millimeters, you get 304 millimeters, okay? Like when I measured this little tiny piece of paper, it's about 3 millimeters longer on this side than it was here. So what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to go in and measure and divide again. But you do it the same way as you did before. Butt up your ruler. Make maybe a light mark up here. If you want to check and make sure this is straight, you can take a good piece of paper that you know has a good 90-degree angle and put it on here and see if it matches. If it is, then you know the line is straight up and down, because we want the line straight up and down. We don't want it to be crooked. And then to make sure that you're right, and of course you would make your lines really light, but to make sure that it's right, take a scrap piece of paper and compare the halves. Make a mark here and say, okay, what's this half compared to this half? Is it off? Mine is a little bit. So I would go back and maybe move this over a little bit. As long as it's really, really close, you should be fine. But at the end of the day, you're going to have a big piece of paper that looks like this, and each quadrant is going to look pretty good. Now, if you missed the rest of the Google Meet today, just go back and read the instructions for the assignment, because the recordings did not work. What you're going to do is there's a list with your name on it. It's attached to today's assignment. It's also under class materials, but it's going to have your block on it. It's going to say options. It's going to have your name in alphabetical order by last name. It's going to have your name. You're going to find there's 3 choices that you have, fruits and vegetables, 3 choices you are given. You have to pick one of the 3 that you've been given, okay? And then you pick one of those 3. You go to the photos, just in the same place where you found them last Thursday. They're also under Google Classroom, okay? Those are under Google Classroom, under class materials, okay? And what's going to happen is you're going to pick one of those 3. You know, like if you're in the A group, you know, you might have the grapes, the walnuts, or the pineapple, okay? If you are in the B group, you may have the grapes, the walnuts, and the bell pepper. If you're in the C group, you would have the apple, the pear, or the bell pepper. Okay, so there are different choices, but they're assigned to you. You'll have to pick one of those three choices assigned to you. And what you're going to do is today, you're only going to draw the outlines of that fruit or vegetable. It's going to fill in one square, only one square. These, leave 3 of them blank. I don't care if you draw it here or here or here, but only pick one square and draw it in that one square. Just the outlines of it. Fill up the space. Don't draw it teeny tiny in the middle of the square. Draw it really big. Okay, so it fills up the space. Most of the photographs are cut to a square. There are a couple that are rectangular. You may have to change them a little bit, but get them really, really close up and just outlines today, and then submit those. And then we will, I'll try to look at those outlines, and then tomorrow we'll start on the second part of this new project. So those are the steps. I hope that makes sense. If you have any questions, feel free to email me. Take care and best wishes.